Yo, how's it going, everybody? It's the Masked Man, and today I have a very special guest for the channel. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? Swagkage here.
Now, this is a big collab for me personally, as I started my channel very much inspired by the boy here, Swag. And I thought a good idea for the video because I've seen various videos actually ranking the Akatsuki weakest or strongest. Instead, I thought it'd be cool to put a narrative spin on it, and this time we try to rank the characters from worst to best written. Now, we can kind of get into this, but it's a little loose in terms of how you rank them. For instance, some of the members near the bottom, they're at the bottom because there isn't given much to their character versus the ones on the top, especially the top three.
So the one that we have on the very bottom actually does have plenty of screen time. He's just lame. It kind of sucks. But there's like, if you wanted to, like, you could mentally categorize these into like different tiers. It's kind of up to you where you draw the line. But I think that everybody could agree that there's definitely some that like belong higher than others. And at a certain point, it's just kind of up to preference.
Right, exactly. So with all that out of the way, I think we can just hop right into the list. And at number 10, Zetsu. I don't think we have to explain this one at all. I really don't.
Like at first he seemed like really cool. He was like this weird like alien monster dude. He had like the plant thing going on, and you know, this like recon dude for the Akatsuki. Well, I mean, like, that made sense. I feel like they should have had somebody in that role, but like that doesn't end up like that's not really what he like. He does still do that. But he's not super vital because like everybody else is really good at doing his job, right? Like Obito can teleport everywhere whenever he wants. He's like, you know, he's good. So like it doesn't really feel like Zetsu's super necessary. And then he turns out to be like two different characters. Like one you can like grow, and then the other one just like attaches to him. It's really weird. And he like doesn't, and like he kills Madara, which nobody likes. That was stupid. Weird plots. Like, I don't know, man.
Yeah. No, but honestly, if your most memorable moment as a character is arguably ruining one of the greatest antagonistic forces in shonen, I think you deserve to be the bottom of any list. So I think we could just move on to number 9.
Yeah.
Now, number 9, he's personally honestly, there's some moments where I think the concept of Hidan is cool, but the execution of it for me felt really underwhelming, considering, again, the most memorable moment I can think of him isn't really for him, it's for Shikamaru. Like, it's not, like, I don't know, Hidan's cool, his jutsu's cool, but there's not really much to him at all.
Hidan is super likable, and in a series with a less robust cast, he'd be a lot more memorable, right? Like, he'd stick out a lot more. But Naruto has some of the coolest, most likable characters in shonen, in fiction in general, right? Like, there are a lot of people who resonate with all sorts of different members of the cast of Naruto. And so, like, the thing is, he's just kind of like a gimmick and an archetype, and he's not, like, it's not like he's a poorly executed version of what Kishimoto was trying to do with him or anything, but he's just not better than any of the other members of the Akatsuki, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, totally. I think Hidan is a lot better. If you're talking duos, I think the Kakazu Hidan duo maybe could rank a lot higher, them together than them separate, because I think Hidan, for me, I like him a lot because he contrasts Kakazu. But here we're just talking about them in a vacuum. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But in a vacuum, Hidan isn't really anything special.
He did do some. I will say he does do something really big, more important than, you know, some of the people that are above him, and that's he kills Asuma, which is huge for Shikamaru. But like, I mean, that's not like a huge body, right? Like that's not particularly impressive or series defining. I feel like there might be even a couple people watching like, wait, who's Asuma? So
no, but even like, then, if him killing Asuma, that was just more to push Shikamaru as a character. It doesn't do anything for Hidan other than he killed someone that we all liked. So I was like, okay, cool. So at number 8, we have Konan. Konan is a tricky one because I like what we saw from her, especially in that fight against Obito. But you and I talked about this before. She doesn't really have her own character at all.
Yeah, she just kind of exists in Nagato's shadow. And It's one of those things with Hidan, right? It's sort of similar, but it's like a different issue. It's sort of like the Hidan thing is that Hidan isn't like standout compared to the rest of the Naruto cast. Konan is sort of the same problem, but a lot more concentrated, where she is living in the shadow of Nagato, and unlike somebody like Kisame, who we'll get to later, we never really see her independent from him, and even when she is by herself, she like Nagato still somehow manages to be the focus. That's like all she's still talking about. And again, she is cool. I don't think anybody would dispute that like Konan is likable. Nobody's gonna sit here and call Konan like a terrible character or anything. I think she has one of the coolest jutsu or like power sets in the series. It's very visually interesting. And she did a bunch of really neat stuff with it. But, like, in terms of overall impact, in terms of, it's really hard to, like, resonate with Konan because she's just kind of like a henchman, you know, with, like, the bigger characters, you know, you can look and you can see some of yourself in them, but Conan's really just following Nagato's orders because she believes in him more than she believes in herself. And then this continues when she fights Obito, where she's, you know, now her belief it's shifted to Naruto. She's got a lot of faith in him to do what you know, she thought that Nagato should have been doing. And it's again, it's not bad. It's just that she's not really, like you said, she's not really her own character.
Yeah. She's definitely she's a great support character, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like she shines when she has someone else in the lead. And again, you used Nagato and Naruto as great examples there because that just is the case. And it's one of those things where Konan is, she's just there, it feels like. And I feel like that's the majority of the female cast in Naruto, if I'm going to be honest, with the exception of a few there. They're like, they're there, they do their thing, but that's about it. And also, she was there she was a part of the original founding members. She wasn't actually recruited. Yeah. All of these other members, they're recruited. They're given a lot more time to stand out as individuals. Her, on the other hand, again, her biggest moment is her losing to Obito, which big, awesome, cool fight, but that doesn't really contribute anything to her to add layer to her complex, none of that. So, Conan's just, she's all right. Like, I don't dislike her or anything, but yeah.
I agree. I think that there should have been more to her. I definitely think she should have been, like, second in command, but she's... I guess she technically is, but she doesn't feel like it. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, because all the other members are so imposing.
She's also like fake second in command because Pain was the leader, but Obito was the real leader, and then also Madara was the real leader, and then Zetsu was the real leader. Yeah. So Konan, she's not even. I don't even know where she stacks up in the hierarchy anymore. But again, I like her well enough, but just compared to the other members of the Akatsuki, she falls a little bit short. I don't even know if I want to say she falls short because like that, there's a negative connotation to that, and it's not really her fault. It's just, again, like with Hidan, the other characters are just better.
So with that, we can move on to number 7. Now, number 7, he was actually my favorite member of the Akatsuki when I first got into Naruto, and I think he's super cool, super dope. When I think of characters that I feel like really should have been expanded upon a whole lot more, especially knowing the lore of his backstory and knowing the weight of that now, is Kakazu. Kakazu for me is like super sick, but that's about it.
So Kakazu's dope. He looks really cool, and he's got a bunch of like awesome powers. The biggest like criticism that you could levy at him is that he's bland. Which I mean. I guess at like a, you know, like what first glance, very surface level, sure, maybe, but I mean, I don't even think that that's like true. Like, yeah, he's like stoic and he takes his job seriously, but he has this really cool quirk where the dude just likes money, right? Like he likes hustling and killing people, and I think it's kind of funny. And he's responsible for like a lot, right? Like he adds a lot to Hidan. And even though we don't have Hidan very high at all, I do still think that the chemistry there is enough to you know, like I think it makes Kakazu just a little bit more valuable. I think that, you know, like him being responsible for one of Naruto's landmark moments, the development, and you know, like showing off the Rasen Shuriken is pretty neat.
Yeah.
Like, so he doesn't move the story forward significantly like some of the more highly ranked members of the Akatsuki do, but he has some of the craziest abilities that we ever get to see. Like the hearts thing is really neat, you know, like his immortality isn't like real. It's like a different, it's a completely different kind of immortality from Hidan's, but it's still very scary and very imposing. There's a lot to him, right? Like I said, he seems like basic and bland, like at first glance, but there is a lot, you know, like that you get, like you can look at him and like there is actually like a surprising amount of depth to him, and again, he's not like when you compare him to somebody like Nagato, right? Like he's not, you don't like hear him speak and like have an existential crisis or whatever. But right. he's just really cool, like you said. You know?
Yeah. I think what helps put Kakazu above Hidan and Konan is in the series of Naruto, it becomes a recurring theme of morally gray antagonists, right?
Yeah.
They're antagonists that have some sort of tragedy in their background that help you sympathize. I think Kakazu adds a unique flavor to the Akatsuki, just being a dude, like you said, who just wants money and wants to hustle. And he's an extremely cool character, and unlike Konan, he is his own character. Right?
Yeah, exactly. He's very independent. Like you feel like he doesn't even want Hidan around. He can do stuff by himself.
And I think a piece of something that could mean anything, maybe. Although I would argue it's more for Hashirama than it is Kakazu. But him name dropping Hashirama, being like, "Hey, I survived the fight with the first Hokage." God knows how he survived the fight with the first Hokage.
Hashirama just pity spared him. He was just like, "All right, dude, get out of here." And then Kakazu was like, "Yes, sir."
Returns to his village, and that's why they torture him. I was like, "Did you even try to swing at him?" But I think now we can move on to number 6. And number 6 is similar to Kakazu in the sense that I think both of them are cases of it's what they do is a lot more heavy than maybe what their backstory is, because neither of them really have that fleshed out backstories. And that Deidara, extremely charismatic personality, amazing fight with Sasuke. And
he's one of the most active villains in the series, surprisingly. Like, he feels like a minor villain, but I mean, him capturing Gaara is huge, and like it gets the, you know, the story rolling and ship it in. Without that, a lot of major things don't actually end up happening.
Yeah, so he does do a good amount of things to push the plot, which is important for an antagonist.
Yeah, he's also our introduction to the larger Akatsuki outside of Itachi and Kisame, and you know, he lets us know that okay, the rest of the members are also really powerful too, because you know, he just goes in and he takes out Kazekage Gaara, and like, if this had been like any of the other kids from part 1, you know, like it would have been like whatever, right? But this is Gaara. He's like the big one, right? Like one of the characters of around Naruto's age introduced in the Chunin exams, Gaara is the guy. For a long time, he was around, arguably stronger than Naruto. I'd argue that, you know, like during the Sasuke retrieval arc, Gaara probably was stronger than Naruto, right? Because like he flooded that whole forest with sand, did all this crazy stuff to Kimimaro. And you know, Naruto and Sasuke's fight felt a lot less ridiculous than the one between Gaara and Kimimaro. So when you see like Deidara come in and you know, just handle this guy and just leave like it's, you know, just another day for him. It's like, oh wow, okay, so you know, the rest of the Akatsuki, they're not playing around either. These guys are serious business. And like you said, he has some really likable, like attractive character traits. Like he, you know, just his thing. He's super charismatic. He's really funny. The way he just keeps egging Naruto on in order to put Kakashi on edge, like by bad mouthing Gaara and talking about how he killed Gaara, and like Kakashi just like, oh my god, no, Naruto, please calm down, and Naruto just doesn't get it. That Deidara is doing this on purpose. It's and his fight with Sasuke, like you also said, is great. It's one of the best fights in the series. He's just really cool. Also, the explosive clay thing is like really bizarre. Like it's something like I would never have come up with, and I think it's like, because it's like people who just have like explosion jutsus is already kind of wacky, and then to make like clay molds that take all this time and are really delicate just to blow them up. I think I think
Right,
like
right.
that's super
Yeah.
sick and like really weird. It's definitely like a memorable thing for him. Like anybody who's seen Naruto, you show them any one of like Deidara's sculptures, they're gonna recognize it's one of Deidara's things. So I think that speaks to the quality of his character.
Yeah, yeah. Deidara and Kakazu are what I would consider impression characters. They're two that leave very
Yeah.
strong impressions in different sense. Again, with everything that you brought up with Deidara's ginormous personality and the extent he's willing to go, the whole art is an explosion thing. To the point that he, what was it you said again? He rage quit DC'd against
Yeah. Before we started recording, we were talking about Deidara, and yeah, like so like with the other members of the Akatsuki who killed themselves, which is like everyone from here on out. Deidara's was like the only one that wasn't like nobly motivated. Right, like all of the other ones had kind of like respectable reasons for it. He just got like so mad that he couldn't beat Sasuke that he just like rage quit. He DC'd from the rank match. He was out of there, blew himself up, and it was really in character. Like it was super on brand for him. It was really funny, and I mean when I was reading that, I was like, oh my god, did he just kill Sasuke?
I just want to bring that up because it was good. So now from 5 and up, I think is where we get characters with a lot more fleshed out, I'd say, backstories, and also a lot more moments to shine than I would argue the ones on the list and below. And so at number 5 is Kisame.
Yeah, I feel like in any other series, or like when compared to any other organization, Kisame would be a lot higher than in the middle. It's just like bad luck for him that he had to be Itachi's partner, right? And he still manages to be really compelling on his own.
Yeah.
Like Konan's solo, she's down at number 8, and one of the reasons is because she was paired up with Pain. Kisame is up here, despite being paired with Itachi. And so I think he deserves props for that, because everybody respects this guy, right? Like he's really cool. He's visually distinct. Nobody else looks like him. Like you could see like just like 2% of a drawing of this guy, and you know exactly who you're looking at. Yeah, exactly. He's got a sick sword. Like it's barely even a sword. It's like a big paddle. But like it's still super sick. He's got his cool shark mode. His fights with Guy are all really sick and really funny. Like he is also charismatic. In a completely different way than Deidara, but he still manages to be just as charismatic as any of the other members of the Akatsuki. Honestly, like he always has something funny to say, even when he's first introduced. And I think this is a big deal, right? Because Itachi had been built up for a while, so you knew who this guy was, like going into their introduction. Even when he was first introduced, Itachi did not completely steal the show from him, and I think that's pretty. I think that's definitely worth mentioning, because Kisame doesn't really do any of the fighting, and him being there, like you still remember who he is. Like he was in all the Naruto games that came out before Shippuden started airing, and what he did, like 2 jutsu ever, and they always managed to give him like really fleshed out like on brand movesets. So I don't know, I just think that he managed to leave a really strong impression early on, despite not having a whole lot to work with, and then he was expanded upon in Shippuden in ways that were like satisfying and just like made you like him more. And his backstory is really cool too. Like he actually had fairly noble reasons for joining the Akatsuki. He was like, oh yeah, the system's like broken. This is all like really this is all really fucked up. And Obito, you seem like you got an idea, so I guess I'll try and work with you, and we can work towards accomplishing some actual change.
With Kisame and everyone above on the list, I think these are the characters with the strongest thematic to them, if that makes sense. Like the strongest thematics.
Yeah.
Kisame, the main thing is his loyalty. And I mean, again, a member who committed suicide because he didn't want to spill the tea. He ain't no snitch. And I mean, back in his backstory, he killed his own squad members because, again, he didn't want any information to be leaked. So Kisame has a presence about him. And again, he's just given a lot more time to be impressive throughout Naruto than all of the other members, and they flesh him out well. They give him some of the most insane fights in the series, the one against B, the one against Guy, and all that. And so it's just there's a lot to Kisame, a lot more than I would have actually thought they would have given him at the beginning of the series. So with Kisame there, I think it's a fair ranking, number 5 with Kisame. I feel like that's just where he has to go, because next one, number 4, I'd say second or third favorite member in the Akatsuki, definitely one of my top 5 favorite characters in all of Naruto. I think he has probably my favorite backstory as well in all of Naruto, and that's Sasori.
This dude is so sick. Okay, so I'm not gonna hold y'all. If it were up to me, Sasori might be up a little higher, maybe above a certain Uchiha, but you guys probably wouldn't let us get away with that. So Sasori is first and foremost so cool. Like there were, like Kakazu was as high as he was almost entirely because of his like swag factor. Sasori is so sick, okay? Like, the guy, like, there's so like, he's got, like, his weapon is a dead Kage, and it's, at the time he's introduced, the strongest Kazekage ever. That's, like, what he uses to fight, is the puppet, like, a puppet version of that guy that he killed. And which, by the way, he did without that puppet, his strongest tool. So he's like a lot weaker when he fought the third Kazekage. And like that's just a thing, right? Like it's like you don't like linger on it. They're just like, oh wow, he's the one who killed the third Kazekage. And Sasori's just like, yep. And then he keeps trying to kill Sakura and Chiyo. Like he doesn't. He doesn't like boast or brag or anything. Like he knows how sick he is, and like the dude. So like it's impossible for like a normal puppet master to do what I'm about to say, because like for most people, like Kankuro, for example, you got to dedicate all 5 fingers of one hand to one of your puppets. When you're first starting out, sometimes you gotta dedicate all 10 fingers. Just to one puppet, okay? And Chiyo does something that's pretty cool when she does the Chikamatsu's 10 puppets and she controls each of them with one finger. And Sasori was like, well, I want to be able to summon a whole lot more than that at one time. And obviously, I don't have 100 fingers. So he just turned himself into a puppet and had like this string mechanism that like generates chakra strings so that he could just summon 100 and sick them on people. And he's like, yeah, when he summons them, he's like, yeah, I destroyed like a whole country with this. So get ready. Like, dude, oh man, he's so cool. When he first fights Kankuro's like, wait, you're Sasori of the Red Sand? I've bought your puppets before. He's got so much clout, and that's just like the cool stuff about him, right? I also think that he's a really interesting character in his own right.
I think when it comes to, I'm glad you got all that out of the way, because Sasori is one of the characters with so much hype, but he has a lot to him that backs all that hype up. Like, he's not just hype. Yeah. And going into his backstory, when you learn of his childhood and you learn about his detachment, I think, from humanity, seeing how once his parents died, and I think he became obsessed with puppets, and he even recreated his parents into the form of puppets. And I think it was an interesting fact that I thought was so neat was he got so tired of waiting for his parents that's why he hates waiting as an adult. Like, it's little things like that I really appreciate being done with the character to really give them more personality and more complexity, because Sasori, he's this cold-hearted serial killer, but in his backstory, you can perfectly see how he got to that stage. And it's one of those things where I never felt so sad for someone who just low-key was about to murder everyone I loved and cared about in this current cast. And just because I know how the Naruto fan base can be, but I just in case there's some crayon eaters out there, if you so much as dare bring up that Sakura and Chiyo beat him and Sasori's not that good. First of all, that has nothing to do with his character. You want to do it?
Let me
go
explain
ahead.
It to you. Yeah. Let me. All right. So let's explain why that is actually not even that bad. So you take this character Sakura, who again, yeah, whatever. She doesn't do a whole lot after this, but so here's the important thing about her. She punches really hard. She got trained straight from Tsunade. That is what she does best. And also, she is a medical ninja who happens to be like really good at treating poison. Like the whole Sand Village is like sicking its medical team on Kankuro to try and save him. She's the one who has to do it, right? Like they can't. So this is point one, right? And they're fighting a guy who's really good with poisons. Now, if it was just Sakura up against Sasori, and you were like, well, he still shouldn't have lost to her, sure, fine. But then you take one of the best puppet masters ever, and you get rid of all of Sakura's flaws. Now Chiyo is able to control her. Right? So Sakura doesn't have to make any decisions. She doesn't have to worry about being quick or having like really solid reflexes. Chiyo's got all that covered for her. Yeah. You give her the ultimate antidote to Sasori's best weapon, his poison. And like Chiyo comes in there, she literally knows everything about him. She's his fucking grandma, right? Like right. Imagine any of you guys' grandmas pulls up as a badass ninja, and like you gotta fight her, and she's also got like this other really powerful person with her, and I don't know, man. You might get.
She might get messed up.
She might, She might be like, well, actually, he really likes this, and this is how he does X, Y, and Z. You know, like it. And
exactly.
The other thing about it too is like she was packing the strongest puppets of all time. And also, Sasori let them win. So,
right, exactly. Sasori again won. He died in the embrace of his parents, which again, knowing his backstory for me was like I love how that ended with him. I just like you know. So if you want to throw a little hissy fit that he lost to in 2021, I just don't know. I don't know.
I'm just saying the resources are out there. You could be educated about this if you comment that you are letting everybody know that you could have known all this and you chose not to. That's
have you seen that one video? I forget that it was like, "Hi, my name's Jeffrey. I'm 19 and I never learned how to fucking read." Like it's like a video like that. I'll play the clip, but that's exactly what ran through my mind.
What up? I'm Jared. I'm 19 and I never fucking learned how to read.
Sasori, easy number 4. Easy number 4 for sure.
Yeah, again, maybe if we deserve would be a little bit higher. Maybe number 3, but that's
higher above the next person. Do you want me to get all the dislikes out of the way now, or do you?
So real talk. Number 3. So some people are gonna think we don't have him high enough as it is, and like, okay, I'm gonna be honest. I do get it. Number 3 is Itachi, and Itachi's great. Don't get me wrong. Like So in terms of like swag factor, like we were just talking about with Sasori, Itachi's got that in spades. He has some of the coolest moments in the whole series. I think he has maybe like the hardest line ever. When Kabuto's like, the reanimation jutsu doesn't have any flaws. So, and Itachi's like, actually, your jutsu does have one flaw you failed to consider. And Kabuto's like, oh yeah, I'd love to hear it. And Itachi says, me. Like, all right, that's pretty cold. So he's really cool. And it is at this point where we reach like a brand new level of complexity and nuance to the characters, right? Mm-hmm. Because these top 3 are all like, you know, like they are S tier villains. Itachi kind of straddles the line between villain and like protagonist or like deuteragonist, right? Because like he is like an antagonistic force for a lot of the series, but it's because he like has to be, and because he has the character's best interests at heart. And so like objectively speaking, he probably does belong here above Sasori. The only reason I was saying what I did is because me personally, I really like me some Sasori. I think maybe he belongs up here, but I'm not gonna fault anybody for putting Itachi in the top 3.
Right.
Even if you want to put him at your number 1, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like the build up to his fight with Sasuke and the scene where you find out who he actually is.
That was wild.
Because like I've been watching Naruto and reading it since I was a kid, so it was like years that I thought he was this heartless monster, and then like Madara, quote unquote, pulls Sasuke aside and he's like, yeah, all right, but hold on a second, and he just unleashes all this info. And it's like this is like a classic example of like an exposition dump, which normally I hate, But for this specific, like it like completely blew my mind apart. Like my whole world was shattered when I was reading this. I was like, what? What are you talking about? There's no way. And like to take this character and redefine him and recontextualize him. And he was already great, right? Like when you thought he was evil, he was incredible as it was. But then when you take him and you turn him into a completely different character and manage to make him even cooler, like you don't ruin him, you actually manage to enhance him. I think that's like crazy. Like that is one of the most impressive things Kishimoto did throughout his like the entire Naruto run.
Totally. I think the main thing about Itachi as to why I think a lot, I definitely couldn't have him above who's at number 1. No. I'll take that one to the grave. I'm taking that one to the grave. But the thing is with Itachi, the thing is with Itachi in comparison to the number 2 character is a lot of Itachi's, again, motives and what really defines him as a character is given very clearly to the audience. Again, through exposition, many times not of his own. It's usually other characters speaking about Itachi. And in that sense, part of me likes Itachi. Like, I love Itachi as a character, right? But part of me really feels like for a certain sector of the story, he feels more like a plot device to push Sasuke, which isn't a negative towards Itachi at all. But I feel like he's, in comparison to who's at number 2, Itachi nails it all the time when he's on screen, and his motives are made very clear because, again, it was given a large expositional time to show what he's about, versus the person who's at number 2, who, for some reason, is one of the most misanalyzed characters I can think of in shonen. Like, I've never seen a fan base somehow miss a mark on a character so badly. And it's the same with Sasuke. It's
so bizarre. Yeah, I agree. We can talk more about that in a second. I think that the best way to... So I'll say this. Itachi is for Sasuke what number 2 is for Naruto. I think you'll agree with me about that. And because Naruto is the main character, number 2 ends up just being more... And we'll talk more about him later. Let me just wrap up about Itachi. There is like a whole lot like of depth to him. And I do agree with what you said. A lot of the cool stuff about him does come from other characters, and that can be that can be a mark against him from a certain perspective because it sort of takes some of the agency away from him. But I also think that it kind of works to enhance him a little bit because it makes him feel even bigger than like just, you know, like he kind of like transcends being a person and is more like a force of nature because he just accomplishes and changes so much in and about the world. And I mean, like the amount he was a really big deal, right? Like aside from Orochimaru, he was like the guy to take down throughout the beginning of part 1. And then I mean, like Orochimaru kind of took a back seat to him throughout the beginning of Shippuden, right? Like Orochimaru was there, but you knew like Sasuke's big target was Itachi, and their fight is really cool. And like the first fight that Itachi shows up in is also sick, right? Like when he does that exploding clone thing and like he teleports behind Kakashi and nothing personnel kids him with a shadow clone. Yeah, and like Tsukuyomi is also sick. So I definitely think like it would be a bit weird not to have him in at least top 3. He has so many good things going for him. And I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to rank him higher. But we'll get to why we like the 2 that are above him just a little bit more here in a second.
Yeah, I just want to add another thing about Itachi is Itachi also has, again, one of my favorite personal backstories. And the thing that really secures him and the other 2 above him in this top 3 is the narrative weight that they have within the series. Like Itachi is responsible for Sasuke's entire character. And everything that he does to move things within the narrative of Naruto is ginormous. So he definitely deserves where he is. And like you've been saying, he could definitely go higher. This might be to spite some of my homies, but yeah.
No, I get it. It's really personal. I agree with our ranking. But I wouldn't. But what I'm saying is, you're not wrong if you think Itachi is, above where we have him. But I'm ready to talk about who we got at number 2. This is my boy right here.
Yes, sir.
Let's get into Obito. This is the man. And like you said, he is one of, if not the most, number one, most misanalyzed, misunderstood characters in shonen, maybe even in fiction, period. People seem to like, I don't get how people like hear him talk and hear him say the things he says and come away thinking the things that they do about him, but like okay, let's go ahead and get it out of the way for like the
2021,
the mouth breathers,
bro.
right?
Oh, the mouth breathers.
He did not start the fourth war over Rin. He says this to Kakashi. Like, as a matter of fact, Kakashi brings up Rin multiple times while they're talking, and Obito's like, "You're still on that?"
Right. He's like, bro, I've been past the fact that it's stated in the manga and in the he states it himself, and it's 2021, and people legitimately still think this. When you've had 4 years now, I think, to analyze that you are a Crayola chomping, crayon eating, like, bro, it hurts. It hurts. And
imagine pouring in your milk before your Crayola crayons in your cereal bowl. I can't believe
Captain Crayola, just Crayola flakes. Oh man, no, but even if the Rin thing was a case, it's almost as if people forgot everything Obito was before that. When he was Toby, when he was pretending to be Madara, this man was name dropped from near the beginning of Naruto, and he's one of the ties to Kakashi's mystery as a character, but also he's the perfect parallel to Naruto as the protagonist. Like, Obito has so much narrative weight to the story, and I think thematically he's beautiful in terms of falling into despair. He has some of the most unique movesets in the entire series. I mean, just one moveset with Kamui.
Oh, yeah, man.
The fight against Kakashi
is so cool.
That's my number one fight in the entire series, Kakashi versus Obito.
That's a good pick.
Yeah, and it's like there's so much great things about Obito. Are you really, even if it was the case, which we just debunked, would you really throw all that out just because he was like, hey, yeah, Rin? Like, what the?
Wait, what's with the inconsistency, right? Because everybody likes Orochimaru, and he is like a confirmed How to Catch a Predator feature, right? Like,
hey, Sasuke,
that guy
how you doing?
Yeah, right. Like, he straight up has some like weird pedophile vibes going on, and those are very intentional. And then, like, all the Obito stuff, people are like, well, he seems to me, in my opinion, like he might be a pedophile, even though he says he's like, and even like, it doesn't even, it's not even like it's so stupid, because like, even if he was still attached to Rin, like, I feel like it would be, you kind of have to do mental gymnastics to not assume that that's like platonic at this point, right? Like, Rin, like what Rin represents to Obito isn't like, oh, I want you to be my girlfriend. It's like she was the only person who in every situation was, you know, nice, was like didn't crack and become cynical, you know, like even Kakashi, who like right before he quote unquote died was probably like his best friend. You know, Kakashi was an asshole for a really long time, but Rin was just like, you know, she was like pure goodness. And he really did like want something with her, but I don't think he ever like held it against her, and I don't think he was like bitter that they didn't get together. Like, I think he was just sad, but like he just saw her as like an example of, you know, okay, this is the sort this is like an example of, you know, good in the world, which he didn't see a lot of. And when he saw Kakashi kill her, he like, I feel like his mind just snapped, and he couldn't comprehend it.
Right.
And you the other thing like people got to keep in mind too is it's not like his life was like good before that happened. It's not like that's the only bad thing that happened. Yeah, he was a child soldier orphan, and like everybody probably like I'm sure there are a lot of people who will be able to relate to this. Like, maybe if, you know, you have like a really distinguished or accomplished like older sibling, or if one of your parents is, you know, did anything that was like super really cool. But like Obito was an Uchiha, and so the standard that he probably had to live up to was like way higher than he ever asked for, guaranteed. And so like for him to be like a klutz and an idiot, and just, you know, never be able to live up to what people expected from him. I mean, that must have been like really rough for him.
Right,
And again, I get like people bullying you isn't a reason to turn into a nihilist, but it can probably help, especially when you throw in like, again, being a child soldier and stuff. Like when you grow up being really insecure, feeling really dejected, it makes it a lot easier to start being a pessimist, right? And so, like, for all this other stuff to happen to him, it makes sense for him to stand. I mean, like, at the end of the day, it's not like what he wanted was selfish either, right? Like, he wasn't just coping with the fact that Rin died. He really wanted to change the world. And now, granted, I'm not trying to say that he was like a noble, heroic fella throughout the whole series. He did some evil things, but this came as a result of the character is the only example in Naruto of like a full-blown nihilist, right? Like he just straight up said, he's like, look, I can do whatever I want in this world because nothing matters. It just sucks.
Exactly.
I'm gonna do whatever it takes. I don't care how evil I gotta be to make sure my utopia comes to fruition. And at the end of the day, everybody's gonna be in paradise and it'll all be fine, right? Like, I don't know, like, he's just super layered and complex, and he's a great foil to Naruto, probably better than anybody else, because he was Naruto growing up.
Exactly,
and he, unlike Naruto, he did it, he wasn't consistent, he couldn't do it, he cracked,
he lost hope,
he fell apart, exactly, he fell apart, and like especially with all the crazy stuff that happened in 2020, I'm sure a lot of people probably maybe hit like an emotional low point. So you can probably see why like Obito watching his best friend kill his other best friend, and maybe after with all this other stuff going on, it makes sense that he would just be like, oh wow, yeah, everything sucks. And
right.
I don't know. I don't have any issues with him, man. And also, like, Speaking about, you know, the swag factor thing, you know, that Itachi and Sasori have. And, like, you see the Sharingan, like, he's so enigmatic and mysterious, and he feels so powerful. And, like, the fact that you believe that this is, like, Madara, who's been built up forever, like, man, he's so cool. I'll let you, I've rambled for so long, though. You can say some stuff about him.
No,
too,
yeah. This is, he's kind of the character that inspired my channel icon, The Masked Man and everything.
Yeah.
Obito, for me, from the very get-go is, again, just, I don't want to restate everything you just said, but essentially my favorite scene in the entire series is when Obito murders all the Bloody Mist Ninja in a fit of rage. There's probably no more blood shed in the entire series than there is in that scene. And Obito, at the end of it, when he's holding Rin, he says, I see now, this is hell. People need, like, I don't get how people miss this, but his entire ideology was being put into question by Madara. He works his ass off during God knows how long that time was when he was trapped in there, but with that giant boulder, and he escapes just to see the two people he was literally working for to see being, like, taken away from him. And so with everything that had already happened in his life, him being crushed in half and somehow surviving, like, Obito has, if not every right, like many other characters in the series, to be the absolute pessimist that he is. And so when he does everything that he does within the story, I don't think any of it is out of character for Obito at all. Even in the end when he's Jubito and Naruto, like, talk no jutsus him, whilst although I can understand people's frustration with it, again, if anything, Naruto's the one character who could reach out to Obito.
I agree, yeah, because like the Kakashi points this out too. When the Jubito fight is happening, Obito is like really determined to break Naruto's spirit. Like part of why he is fighting is because like it bothers him that Naruto is still so hopeful and optimistic, because like it's implied that there's a little bit of self-doubt there, right? Like Obito, I don't even know if Obito realizes that he's like questioning his own philosophy at that point, but he has done so much that he like cannot be wrong, so he has to win this debate with Naruto, right? Like he has to prove to Naruto that he is correct. And you know, when it comes down to it and they get in that confrontation, you know, like after all this stuff that Obito's done, all of the horrific things that he's caused to happen, all of the turmoil that he's caused Naruto, not just by killing Minato and Kushina, but also by manipulating Sasuke and starting the Fourth Great Ninja War and killing a bunch of Naruto's comrades. Like, for this kid to straight up like reach across the aisle and be like, no, dude, seriously, straight up, it is okay. It's not too late. Join our side. I don't know. Like, I feel like like he probably saw like what I was describing that he saw in Rin in Naruto there. He was like, oh my fucking God, I can't believe it. I also think, by the way, the scene where so he summons the sword of Nunoboko and he's like, this is literally like the strength of my will. You are not beating me now. Because like this is like ironclad, right? And you know, he goes to clash with Naruto and Sasuke and he's probably gonna kill them, and then at the last second there he has second thoughts. He's like, well, what, this is what my life could have been. I could have been Hokage, maybe, you know, I could have, you know, been friends with Kakashi still. And like it's, you know, it's at that moment when his will to fight, like when his resolve weakens, that Naruto and Sasuke are able to beat him. I don't know, man, it's so cool. There's so much sick stuff about this character, so many awesome scenes.
Yeah, and then the way it ends with him sacrificing his life so Naruto could live on. I just, again, literally, outside of the stupid petty Rin thing, this is literally just a meme. Like, there's nothing you could say bad about his character. Nothing at all. Like, it's just, it mind boggles me. It really does. It really does.
I think there's some people that are salty because they really like Minato and Kushina. And don't
Neji.
get me wrong, I love me some. Neji too. Then don't get me wrong, I love me some Minato. He's my outro, as a matter of fact.
Right.
And it would have been really cool if Naruto would have gotten to know his parents. But like, I mean, Obito, like, that's really weird to like hold like an evil character doing evil things against them. And I know this is probably gonna sound like a non-point, right? Like, people are gonna be like, Swag, you're preaching to the choir here. I've run into some people who are like, no, I can't like Obito. He killed Minato, dude. It's stupid. That was his master, and he flipped it. Like, I don't know, man. Like, whatever. And Obito also kind of had a valid reason to, with like the grudge thing, with like, you know, Minato didn't show up in time to save him. He didn't show up in time to save Rin from Kakashi. And, you know, I don't blame Obito for having some, like, pent-up aggression, like, directed at this guy. And by the way, that fight, as short as it is so cool.
The Minato-Obito one?
Yeah.
Are you talking you're talking, like, young Obito, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. People forget Obito was, like, 13.
I know,
that's
he was
mind-blowing.
so young, right? And he fought Hiruzen and Minato and like the whole Leaf at the same time, right? Like, you know, like the dude was packing on abilities. And I mean, like, even when you're under the impression that he's not as strong as he actually is, like in the 5 Kage Summit, where he's just sort of letting Sasuke do all the legwork, like, he's still really impressive. You know, like when he teleports into Anoki's death cube and saves Sasuke.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, man, I don't know what to tell people. If you don't like this character, you are lame. He's so sick.
Now we move on to number 1. And despite how much I love Obito, I couldn't. For me, there's no antagonist that embodies their own philosophy to the point that they name their self after their own philosophy. And that's Pain.
Yeah.
Pain is without a doubt, for me, one of the best antagonists, period in anime and manga.
Yeah, I agree. I personally would put Obito above Pain, but I do think that Pain at number 1 might be correct, like, speaking objectively, because, I mean, man, like, the second you see him, like, the amount of presence he has... Right. Like, just through his design alone, the Rinnegan is so scary. And like all the piercings, and you know, like you take a look at him and you're like, oh yeah, this is this is
the big boss. This is the guy.
This is if you want to split Naruto into 3 parts, right? Like part 1, and then you got the first half of Shippuden pre-war, and then the war half of Shippuden. Pain is, I mean, like, everybody knows this, but he's like the final boss of like that second part there. But like the reason I'm saying this is because he really feels like it the moment you see him.
Right.
You know, like a lot of people talk about how you know, how good the scene where Madara first shows up is, because he makes it very clear very quickly that he's no joke. You know, they're not gonna get rid of him like without a crazy fight. Like, this dude is gonna make it hard to take him out. And the thing is, in order to do that, Madara has to like kill a whole platoon of ninja, but like Pain just like walks into frame, and you're like, oh my god.
Right. Yeah, Pain gave one of the best presences ever. I love his backstory, and I always loved how, as an antagonist, he still felt like he was the protagonist, which is part of the whole Cycle of Hatred speech. When you talk about iconic anime speeches, Cycle of Hatred is one of the very first I think anyone would think of. Most people would consider Pain Assault arc their strongest arc in Naruto, or at least one of the top ones. And just everything about Pain speaks to a top quality antagonist. I mean, he pulled up and vibe checked a whole village with one move. Like, as soon as he did that, you knew what was up. And his ability to push Naruto to his breaking point was amazing. I thought that was one of the things where seeing him completely dominate Naruto, who had just trained so hard to get revenge on Jiraiya, and then to find out Pain had a connection to Jiraiya before Naruto even knew. Like, all of that was just so amazing into building up the tension between Pain and Naruto. And so I don't know how you could use anything to argue against Pain. It's just, for me, there's nothing wrong with him at all.
And like we were talking about why complexity lends, why the complexity of Obito and Itachi helps make them, so good. And I mean, Pain's got layers and layers and layers of depth to him. Like, the guy is a walking juxtaposition, right? Like, you've got this dude walking around killing people, talking about peace, and like it's so creepy and cool and bizarre and like mind-boggling. You're like, dude, this doesn't make any sense, but like I get where he's coming from at the same time. Because I mean, like, so like, when you talk about somebody like Deidara or Kisame having charisma, like, it's just a neat character trait. But when you talk about like Nagato having charisma, you're saying he's charismatic enough to like turn people into revolutionaries and to get you to see his point of view and to get you to feel like he might be justified in murdering a bunch of people just to scare people so much that they stop fighting, right? And like when, like, you don't ever really see this sort of thing happen, like, not in fiction in general, but I should say in, like, shonen or, like, fantasy stories that follow, like, the hero's journey type of, like, plot mold, where, the main character's like, I'm gonna save the world, and the villain just goes, like, oh, how? You don't see that very often.
Right.
But Naruto's like, no, I'm gonna bring about an age of peace, and Pain's just like, oh, I'm curious. How did you plan on doing that? And Naruto straight up doesn't have an answer. Right. And like that moment is really powerful, and Naruto himself even realizes that like Pain caught him lacking there. That he was like, oh wait, yeah, I'm proving his point.
I didn't think
right
this
here,
through,
aren't
yeah.
I? Yeah, and for like by the time that Naruto walks into the hideout at the end, he gets where Pain is coming from, like at least in terms of like the pain and like hatred that he feels. Like, Naruto's like, I have never hated somebody the way that I hate you, and Pain's just like, yeah, exactly, like, welcome to my life.
Right.
And like, for like, he just has such a substantial effect on Naruto, and what's crazy about it is, unlike Obito and unlike Itachi, these characters who did things that were very formative to Naruto and Sasuke, Pain shows up like really late into the series and still manages to have this really tight connection with Naruto.
Right. They built his entire character, because even though I would argue Obito is a much better parallel to Naruto, Pain and Nagato were just, like, I wouldn't say just as good, but Pain and Nagato, Nagato, I should say, was also meant to be a parallel to Naruto in a sense, right? Child of Prophecy, student of Jiraiya. And so there's something that instantly connects with Pain. And again, I think it's through his entire message, right? Because like you said, he caught Naruto lacking, but then provided his own answer. And like I said, Cycle of Hatred, one of the best answers you could give. Like, he just pulled up, massacred an entire village, told Naruto, all right, lay down, I'm gonna give you a lesson, and had the entire audience like, you know what, this motherfucker's spitting. Like, if he didn't just murder everybody we cared about. And so it's one of those things where he has this ability to communicate his philosophy in a way that demands attention. And if an antagonist is able to do that without sounding pretentious or really forced and trying to sound more deep than they are, I think that's a huge plus. And I think Pain does that in an amazing fashion. And then once that entire issue resolves and he realizes, okay, Naruto can do this, you know, and I was wrong, and Naruto's the protagonist of this story, not me, you know, and then he sacrifices his life to save the village. I know some people have an issue with it, but again, I think thematically it works for a resolution of Nagato's character.
Because he was trying to do the right thing is the thing, right? Like, this guy wasn't doing it for the sake of being evil. He wasn't a mustache twirler like Orochimaru, for example. Like, he really did think what he was doing was the right thing. And so when Naruto comes in there and just, you know, just full of conviction is like, dude, no, seriously, what you're doing is wrong. I hate you. I can't believe you do this to Pervy Sage and kill him. You know, he trusted you, blah, blah, blah. You know, and explains like, look, I don't have the answer right now, but I am going to find it. And what are you going to do about it? I beat you. And like, he's just like, man, like it makes sense. You know, the same way with Obito, like Naruto just connects with people, right? And I think, you know, if there was one guy who was going to change Nagato's mind, it was him. So, like, I do get the people were kind of mad that a lot of the major deaths were, like, Disney deaths and all the characters ended up coming back. But, again, I get it. Maybe if you took away the Rene rebirth thing, I don't know, maybe, you know, Pain would be a little bit better, I guess, but also, man, I don't know. I didn't want Kakashi to die. I was cool with him.
Right, yeah. It's not like the case in the war arc where my guy dies and Naruto becomes Jesus and brings him back. Like, no, that's not what's happening here. Like, it's like
yeah, it's just like everybody likes Kakashi. Let him.
Yeah, exactly. He's needed, and also it's not like it came out of nowhere. I feel like the whole Rinnegan ability, being able to restore people, is one of the powers of the Rinnegan, so it ends up working out.
And I think a lot of people would probably consider Naruto versus Pain their favorite fight in the series, and there's a reason for that, not just because of the thematic, like, ideological conflict between the characters, but also because the fight is really fucking cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pain's great. I don't mind putting him up here at number one. I think a case could be made for Obito being the best. And if you really wanted, I guess you could also say Itachi's number one. I think it's between Pain and Obito. Again, I don't mind putting him up here. I feel in my heart like maybe he might be the objective number one. It's really hard to say. But the point is, I definitely don't blame anybody for putting him at the top because he is great and he's like one of. I think the thing is, more than Obito, he's one of like the iconic anime manga villains. And again, that's not all Obito's fault. That's a lot of people who aren't Obito's fault. You know, the people who read the series and didn't get who he was. But regardless, the fact still remains that I think people remember Pain. More people remember Pain really fondly and see him as like representative of a lot of the good in Naruto. So you know, I think like I said, there's definitely a case to be made for him being number one here.
But yeah, we went on for a bit. We had a lot to say about these guys.
Pre-edited, this is a little bit over an hour. I don't know if any of this is going to be cut, but thanks for having me on.
Hey, man.
I like talking about Naruto. I do it for a living, so this was fun.
Hey, man, anytime. For me, this is a big honor, and I know some of my homies are going to be doing backflips seeing this. So, yeah, man, great to have you aboard. As always, I'm going to be leaving the link to Swagkage's channel down in the description below. And if you are new to this channel, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the bell notifications. That way you're notified whenever a new video pops up on some of your favorite anime, manga, or whatever content. As always, this has been The Masked Man. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the... I messed it up. This is the first time I've messed up my outro. From the top. Screw it. Peace. Bye. I ended the recording.
Bye, everybody.